Okay, we'll make a quick start just because I'm aware that we're kind of short for time. So I'm just going to introduce myself quickly. So my name's Deirdre and I work for a business in the community. And we work with lots of different companies all over Northern Ireland, such as banks and shops, companies who run bus and train services, factories that make all kinds of things, such as we have one factory that makes parts for airplanes. And we also work with construction companies who build offices and houses. And my job in business in the community is to check if these companies are operating in an environmentally friendly way. So I'm going to be doing a short presentation. Just move this on here. So I'm going to start by doing a short presentation to everybody about climate change, and then you'll get to watch a video created by a company called Translink, who run our bus and train services in Northern Ireland. And then we will hear from Jenny, as Ciara's already told us, who is the author of Tales from Mother Earth. And Jenny will tell us about the story of Phoebe the Bee. And then we're going to hear from Shauna, and Shauna works at a construction company called McLaughlin and Harvey. And she's going to be talking about the things her company does to help tackle climate change. So, what does climate mean, and what is the difference between weather and climate? Well, weather is basically what we experience every day. So if it's warm or cold or rainy or windy, and climate is how the weather changes over a long period of time. So for example, how the weather might change over 30 years. If you think about it like this, weather tells you what to wear every day, and climate tells you what type of clothes to have in your closet. So, what is climate change? So climate change, or global warming, is the process of our planet heating up. And scientists estimate that over the last 200 years, human activity has caused the Earth to warm by approximately 1 degree. Now that might not sound like a lot, but it does mean big things for people and wildlife around the globe. And unfortunately, rising temperatures don't mean that we'll get nicer weather. The changing climate will actually make our weather more extreme and unpredictable. Can you think of how extreme weather might affect our lives? Well, here are some examples. So more rainfall and changing seasons will affect how food is grown. As if it's too wet or too hot, the food we need to eat can't grow. More rainfall can also result in flooding, damaging our homes, farms, and businesses. Now, this is actually already affecting people, especially those who live in poorer countries. Shrinking sea ice and rising sea levels. So as temperatures rise, the sea is actually warming up, and that means the polar ice is melting. And polar animals whose icy natural habitat is also melting, that means they're particularly at risk, as they need sea ice to be able to hunt, raise their young, and as a place to live. Now, climate change is actually affecting many species, because every day plants and animals are becoming extinct, and that means that they are dying off forever. So what actually causes climate change? Well, one thing is burning fossil fuels. So fossil fuels are things like oil and gas, or turf and coal. And when we burn these to heat our homes or to fuel our cars, gases are released into the atmosphere. And these gases trap the sun's heat, just like the glass in a greenhouse keeps the inside warm. And that's why these gases are called greenhouse gases. And basically, we have too much of these gases in our atmosphere. Another thing that causes climate change is farming. So believe it or not, cows' eating habits contribute towards climate change. And just like us, when cows eat, a type of greenhouse gas called methane builds up in their digestive system, and that's actually released in the form of a burp. Another thing that actually causes climate change is cutting down forests. So forests actually help get rid of the greenhouse gases, as they absorb huge amounts of these gases from the air and then release oxygen back into it. The Amazon rainforest is a huge forest area in South America. It's so large and efficient doing this that it acts like our planet's air conditioner, so it actually cools down our planet, and that limits climate change. But sadly, many rainforests are actually being cut down to make wood, palm oil, and to clear the way for farmland, roads, oil mines, and dams. So how could you help prevent climate change? Well, there are actually small things that you can do in your own home to make a difference. For example, if you walk or cycle instead of using the car, buy less plastic, bring your own bag to the shops instead of using plastic bags, turn off electrical items when you're not using them, Reuse what you have rather than constantly buying more stuff. We all know about recycling, but also reducing your food waste. And remember, don't throw food waste into the bin. And then also switching to energy saving light bulbs. So you may have heard this word quite a lot recently, COP26. And what does COP26 actually mean? Well, COP26, the COP stands for Conference of Parties. And COP is a huge, important meeting that's happening in Glasgow at the moment. And it's all about taking action on climate change. So what actually happens at COP? Well, there'll be lots of world leaders and politicians who will attend, and also people from all over the world, especially places that are most affected by climate change. But there will also be lots of young people there, including a girl from Armagh called Emer Rafferty, who is our very own COP ambassador. And the young people there will give their point of view on what they would like our leaders to do about climate change. Now, the last conference was COP25, and that was held in Madrid in Spain in November 2019. And at that event, Greta Thunberg gave a big speech at the event. Now, Greta Thunberg is a young environmental activist from Stockholm in Sweden, and she inspired school kids around the world to protest against climate change. But she now speaks to politicians and world leaders and often appears on TV highlighting climate issues. So the last COP meeting in Madrid finished with lots of big issues unresolved, but there was an agreement made about putting some carbon dioxide, which is a gas that causes global warming. COP26 is going to be the biggest gathering like this that the UK has ever hosted. And presidents, prime ministers, and even celebrities from around the world will be reporting back on progress since the last meeting. And hopefully there'll be some new decisions on how to cut carbon emissions, which will then hopefully slow down the effects of climate change. So that's kind of a bit of an introduction into climate change and things that you can do yourself at home or in school to help slow down the impacts of climate change. So I'm now going to pass over to John, and John is from a company called Translink, who run the bus and rail services in Northern Ireland. So John, I will pass over to you.
Yeah. Hi, boys and girls, how are you? I love all those waves. They're fantastic. Lovely to see all those smiley faces and waving hands. So yes, my name's John Thompson, and I work for an organization called Translink. Hands up if you know what Translink do. Loads of hands up. I'm sure you're right. Translink operate the buses and trains in Northern Ireland. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about what we're doing in terms of these fancy words like climate change and what we're doing to help the environment. But first of all, I thought I would give you a few facts and figures. Did you know that Translink has over 4,000 people working for it? And that makes us one of Northern Ireland's biggest companies. And did you know that we have over 13,000 bus and train services every single day? And one thing that might be interested to you, how many of you, show me hands, how many of you get the bus or the train to school during the day? Or to work? Where's the grown-ups? If you get a bus or train to work? Plenty of hands up there. Well, do you know that we take 55,000 children to school every single day? So we have, we take those 55,000 children on 1,400 buses, and we have a fleet of trains as well. So what we're trying to do in terms of the environment is we're trying to find out where are what they call carbon emissions. So that's where we use diesel buses, and the diesel buses put carbon, what we were talking about earlier, the greenhouse gases, and we're trying to reduce that down just as low as we can. And we have three main targets. Our first target is to reduce by half the amount of emissions that we put into the atmosphere by 2030. Now that's only 8 and a bit years away. Now, then our second target is for the buses and trains to not put any emissions into the atmosphere by 2040. And then we have a third one, and our third one is what we call to be climate positive by 2050. So hopefully you can remember 2030, 2040 and 2050. And what we hope to be doing by 2050 is actively working to take carbon and emissions, dirty emissions out of the air. And that might be that we plant more trees. That might be that we put solar panels on the roofs of our buildings. And that might be also that we work with sea defenses to maybe produce, help grow plants that take carbon out of the atmosphere. So I've got a little video that I'm going to show you. It's a very exciting time to be at Translink, and we have a few what we call change makers, and they are people who are young people and children who are helping us shape what we do to make Translink much more environmentally friendly. We've been doing stacks of work so far. We're pleased that, you know what, by about April next year, we'll have over 100 electric and hydrogen fuel cell. I know that's another fancy word, but we'll have electric and hydrogen fuel cell buses out on the roads. And if you're lucky enough to see one, there are 3 out there at the moment. And if you're lucky enough to see one, you'll know that it's super duper quiet and doesn't produce any emissions at all. So Maria, if you want to show the little video.
Climate change is happening. It affects everyone, and we must all act now to cut our carbon emissions.
Translink is taking urgent action through its transformational climate positive strategy
This means it will adopt a net zero approach to delivering its services.
and introduce cleaner, greener buses and trains to the Translink fleet. The climate positive strategy will help our environment and deliver better services.
It will also help our health and improve the economy. So here's Translink's promise to us all.
They're going to cut their carbon emissions in half by 2030 and reach net zero carbon emissions by 2040.
That's 10 years ahead of the UK government's net zero target. It's a tough goal to reach, but Translink intends to keep its promise.
They've already started the journey towards a greener future with the rollout of zero-emission buses and plans to decarbonise the entire rail network. But Translink has lots of buildings, offices and workshops, plus bridges, tunnels and platforms. How can their carbon footprint be reduced?
Translink's working on that. They're looking at greener ways to design, build and use their buildings and structures so they enhance our health and well-being and protect the world around us.
Taking these actions now means that Translink is well on track to reach its targets and be climate positive by 2050. Public transport is the backbone of a healthy region. Translink's ambition is to be a cleaner, greener business, protecting the environment, improving biodiversity, reducing waste and water use, while still offering high levels of safety and comfort.
Makes it easy to make the bus and train
Your first choice for travel today, for tomorrow. Climate change is happening now. We must protect our world, so choose cleaner, greener public transport.
Let's change together.
So boys and girls, I hope to see you on some of our environmentally friendly buses and our low emission vehicles sometime soon. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, John. That's brilliant. We're going to pass over now to Jenny. And Jenny is an author, and she is the author of Phoebe the Bee. So Jenny, I will pass over to you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Hi, everybody. Let's see those hands again. It's just so lovely to see you waving at us. So hello, it's so lovely to be here and share this moment with you. Thank you so much. So you just heard from John's presentation what Translink is doing, and I just think that's fantastic. Congratulations. If I was in Northern Ireland, I'd be looking out for those hydro buses in the future. That's fantastic. The thing is, kids, it's like, do you want to do something to help? Because no one is too small to make a difference. So you're going to hear a lot about what businesses are doing, but do you want to do something? Do you want to do something in your back garden that's going to make a difference? So let's see your hands. If you actually want to be a change maker and you want to help the environment and help the biodiversity out there, and you want to help all that you can do to, you know, and take control of this in a way, because this is happening out there. But you know what? You can actually get active and you can do something that can make a real difference. And that's what we did in a way. When I wrote Phoebe the Bee, I brought a team of people together that were passionate about telling a realistic story to children and letting children know that they can actually do something to make a difference, to help the wildlife that needs help today. Now, I'm going to tell you a few facts here, because did you know the bee, the humble bee, has been given the status of the most important living species on the planet currently? Isn't that incredible? Don't you think that's amazing? The most important living species on the planet currently. Think about all the animals and insects, the biodiversity, everything that's on our planet, but the bee has been given that status. Now, any idea why you think that could be? Well, there's lots of hands going up there, and I'm sure if you're doing bugs and grubs at the moment, or if you're looking into this pollination services, anything like that, you'd be having a very good understanding of that. Let me just ask you, if I can just put your hands down for a second, if I can just ask you, who's got an apple in their lunchbox today? Yes, that's right. Now, well done, very healthy too. Now, do you know, if we didn't have bees, we wouldn't have apples. There is a huge connection between the pollination services that bees actually do and our food, the food that's on our plate. When you go into a supermarket and you see the huge array of colour of food, of all the crops that we eat, fruits and vegetables, if we didn't have bees, the humble bee that's this size, or actually goes from, well, they can go from 5 mil up to about 28 mil. The big bumblebees can get much, much bigger. But if they weren't here, then we would be really suffering with our food. But do you know what? The good news is we can all do something to help. And that's why I got together with a team of amazing people, a composer, an illustrator, a story editor, Mother Earth, who narrates our tale, and also myself as the author. And we've written Phoebe the Bee. And it's all about learning to understand that we can actually help something. We seem to be looking after our gardens at the moment with little or no consideration for our wildlife. And we can turn that around individually. We can turn that around. Who has a flower pot that maybe they might be able to put some seeds in? Who has a garden that maybe they can grow some wildflowers in? Who knows what a dandelion is? Lots of hands going up there. Do you know, I mean, a dandelion is termed as a weed, but do you know what? It has 100 little pockets of nectar in there. And those little pockets of nectar are so, so important. It's the first food that bees look for in the season when they come out in the spring. So it's so, so important. So that's what we've done. I became an author because I wanted to share my passion of helping children, knowing that you guys can do something to help the environment and allow you to feel better about the future. Because yes, this is happening, but you can do so much that is going to make such a difference. And your actions collectively can make a huge difference. And that's what it's all about. So I know you're doing the Time to Read program, which is fantastic. Keep on with that. You can actually learn to read also with Phoebe the Bee, because we've also got a read-along version in the CD that comes with the book. And I know you're going to be getting some books later on in due course. So keep on reading. It's so, so important. It can transport you to another world. And for us, when you learn all about Phoebe, you can learn those action tips and what's actually required to help bees today. And that's what it's all about. You have the power in your hands to make a difference. So let's have a listen to our story, Phoebe the Bee, and you can learn all about the importance of dandelions and honey and how far Phoebe actually goes to make a difference for her colony. So Marie, if we can play Phoebe the Bee, please now, that would be lovely. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it, kids.
Welcome to Tales from Mother Earth. Today, I would like to tell you a story about a very special bee called Phoebe. Phoebe was a worker bee who lived with her mother, the queen, and their large family in a beehive on the outskirts of a sleepy country village. Each morning, Phoebe would wake up early, have a sip of honey for breakfast, before stretching her wings and taking to the skies. Feeling happy, she marveled at the carpet of colors below her, greeting the sun as she flew. Passing over a sea of red, orange, pink and purple flowers, she made her way to her favorite spot where the dandelions grew. Landing on each flower in turn, eagerly sipping the nectar and harvesting pollen, the busy bee would quickly find that she could carry no more. With her sacks overflowing, she would make her way back to the hive, content with her morning's work. Mornings flowed into days, and days into weeks as Phoebe continued her routine of collecting pollen from the wonderful flowers. Then she started to notice some changes, until, one day, everything was different. Phoebe's day started just like the others, eating a quick breakfast and taking to the skies. Looking down as she flew, Phoebe grew more and more concerned, as the vibrant colours she was used to were no longer there. They had been replaced by freshly mowed lawns, paved concrete slabs, and wooden decking. As Phoebe approached her favourite spot, she could no longer smell the sweet nectar. She circled over once familiar gardens in search of flowers that would provide the pollen to make honey back at the hive, but none could be found. Feeling exhausted, Phoebe reluctantly decided to stop her search and head back home. At the hive, she soon discovered that her sisters had found the same problem, with their favourite gardens disappearing too. As the weeks went by and the search continued, there simply wasn't enough pollen or nectar to be collected. Everyone was starting to feel very hungry and tired. Some were even struggling to take flight. However, Phoebe never gave up hope. She was determined to find a new source of nectar, knowing that just a few flowers would make all the difference. Taking to the skies once more, she flew past the flowerless gardens, resolute in her decision not to turn back this time. As the sun reached its peak, her wings began to ache, but she continued to tell herself, just one more road, just one more garden. She could feel the warmth of the sun touching her wings, lifting her spirits and driving her onwards. Flying over a wooded glen, she suddenly caught the scent of something familiar, making her heart skip a beat with excitement. She wondered, is this real, or am I just dreaming? As she cleared the trees, she couldn't believe her eyes. Below her was the most stunning meadow garden, filled with blooms of purple, red and pink. She zoomed down to get a closer look, and there they were right in front of her, a patch of her beloved golden dandelions. Landing swiftly, she took a welcome drink. The scent of the nectar was just incredible. She quickly gathered her thoughts and set to work filling her sacks with pollen. Phoebe knew she had to get back to the hive quickly to let her sisters know what she had found. As she flew, she carefully noted each landmark, plotting the course as she went. Arriving back at the hive, Phoebe tumbled in, waking everyone up. She started to sing and dance, telling her family of the amazing garden and exactly where it could be found. "Busy bees, follow me. There are loads of flowers. Come and see." Without hesitation, a troop of worker bees took flight, with Phoebe leading the way. From then on, Phoebe and her sisters continued to visit the garden, collecting enough pollen to feed their whole family. Thanks to her courage and determination to continue the search and never give up, one amazing bee saved the hive.
There you go. One amazing bee saved the hive. And they saved the hive because some lovely person planted some wildflower seeds. So if we want to be change makers out there, and we want to help the bees in particular at the moment, then I urge you guys to go planting some wildflower seeds, either in a flower pot, because we can help one flower pot at a time, or in your garden, or maybe an area in school that could maybe have a Phoebe the Bee meadow, for instance. But we can all do so much to help. And that's what bees need. They need the flowers to survive and thrive. So that's all about Phoebe the bee. That's what she needs. And that's why we wrote that story, really, to encourage you guys to learn that, you know, bees need our help right now, but we can actually help them. We can do something that will make a real difference. So thank you so much for listening, guys. It's been an absolute joy to join you today. Yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jenny. That's so fantastic. Okay, the next person up to talk is going to be Shauna, and Shauna works at a construction company called McLaughlin and Harvey, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about what they are doing in their company to help tackle climate change and help the environment.
Okay, all right, thank you, Deirdre. Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. Today, I'm just going to give you a wee quick overview of how in the construction industry we can become more sustainable and actually help protect Jenny's Phoebe the Bee as well, hopefully, as we move forward. So I'm just going to give you a wee overview of who I am. So my name is Shauna Young, and I work for a construction company called McLaughlin and Harvey. Now, I work in a place called Mollusk, which is just about there on that big map that you can see there. But we also have an office in Glasgow where I'm at today, and also where COP26 is actually taking place as well. So, and my job is social value manager. That basically means that I make sure McLaughlin and Harvey are very kind to the staff, communities, and the environment around us. And I love my job because I get to make sure that McLaughlin and Harvey are very good. And I love construction as well and looking after the environment. My biggest dislike is waste. Now, I said I work in Mollusk, but I live in a place called McLaughlin, so which is just about there. And I see a few schools that are local there as well. So with Hazelwood on the call, I think, that are close to Mollusk. And then there's Spires Integrated School in McLaughlin, and then also St. Patrick's and Nilla possibly joining us as well. And I see a lot of schools there from around the Belfast area that have been maybe in their school before as well. So some of you may already recognise me as well. So what is construction? Well, construction has built the world around us. It creates where we work, live and play, but it also looks after the historic or old buildings that we have as well. It's built your hospitals, the schools you're in today, the shops where you get your food out of and clothes out of, and where you're entertained at as well. It also helps connect our cities. So John's Translink bus station there, that would have had to actually been built, and the roads that the buses go on need to be built as well. So it enables our travel, and also sometimes helps provide us with energy as well. So, but all life on Earth depends on the environment. And you'll have heard a lot of the discussion around COP26 at the minute and net zero over the last couple of weeks, and how we all must change our behaviours to protect the environment and reduce the impact of global warming and climate change that we have. So today, I'm just going to show you what we as a construction industry are actually doing to protect the environment and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Because 40% of all these bad emissions or gases that you're hearing about come from us building our buildings. So McLaughlin Harvey, we've put a plan in place really to help reduce this global warming. And like John at Translink, our target is to become net zero or carbon neutral by 2030. So the greenhouse gas emissions have shown to cause climate change and global warming. So over the next 10 years, McLaughlin Harvey want to reduce our emissions and build a greener, more sustainable environment around us. And we're going to do this by changing the type of energy that we're using, the type of fuels that we're using, to reduce, recycle and reuse our waste that we're creating, reduce our water consumption, change the type of materials that we're actually using in construction, but also protect the environment as much as possible when we're doing our construction. So the first way we're going to do this is actually through changing the type of energy we're using. So where possible, we're going to be using renewable or sustainable types of energy. So you'll see on the cabin there, this is a site cabin. You'll see that we're using solar power and wind energy actually to heat and put electric into that cabin. So moving forward, that's the way we're going to be using putting all our cabins together. The type of fuel that we use for our cars and vans. We want to stop burning the oils and gases that create these bad emissions and change it to a different type of fuel, or use electric as well, so that this can be powered by solar, wind, or water. But one of the ways that we're currently doing this is we're changing the type of fuel that we're using. So we're going to be using a biofuel, which is really basically made from leftover oils from frying your chips on a Friday night. And then that gets sent to a factory, which converted into fuel for your vans, for all your cars, and then even for our machines on the site as well. Now, if we did not use this biofuel, that would mean we would have to plant 38 trees for a minimum of 10 years to balance out these bad gases that we're putting out. So by just changing the type of fuel that we're doing, we're reducing the amount of CO2 or carbon we're putting into the air. But plus, we can also plant 38 trees to support the actual carbon emissions and reduction of them. Another way that we're actually going to reduce how we impact the environment is the waste that we're generating. So waste is a big part of construction. And actually the UK construction industry is responsible for 62% of all UK waste, which is a lot, which is over half. So out of all the waste generated in the UK, more than half comes from construction. So it's very important that we try to reduce this as much as possible through using the correct materials, not damaging our products, and by using materials which are fully recyclable or need to try to reduce the waste that is created. We also need to be able to segregate our waste and make sure that it's being recycled in the correct way as well. And again, this will all mean that it'll go back into the economy again and be reused. One of the main ways that we can actually reduce kind of all of our waste is through basically recycling the old buildings that are already in existence. So when we demolish a building, we will take all of the concrete, all of the stuff out of that building and recycle it, and especially the concrete. So we can use this, we can crush it all down and use it as part of what we call the foundations for the construction site as well. So it builds a really good basis, strong basis for the new building to go up on, but with the old building being used and recycled. So that's what it would look like at the end. We also can reuse materials that are excess from our sites. So we can use the offcuts of materials such as metal or timber, or you'll have seen pallets as well. A lot of people make these into different kind of planter beds. You'll see we've also made birdhouses out of them, small little mud kitchens as well. We've also donated solar panels that have come off old buildings for community groups to support them in their carbon reduction. On our construction sites, another sustainable idea that you can actually do at home as well is rainwater harvesting. So rainwater can be collected from things from the pipes coming down around your house or around the building, and it comes down into this big tub. And we use this water as recycled water to damp down all the areas whenever it becomes very dusty on our sites. And we also use it for washing down our vehicles before they leave site and the dirty boots at the end of the day. But we also have smaller things on the site as well to help us reduce our water use. And that's things like push taps as well. So we're only using the minimum amount of water that we actually need. Another way is actually the different materials that we're going to use. So usually materials that are in buildings are timber, bricks, concrete, and steel and glass. But instead of using the normal, or what you would call conventional types of material, we're looking into different types of materials. So instead of a metal roof, we're looking at different green roofs that can be put in instead. So again, it will provide, I suppose, a little home for Phoebe the Bee as well. And also, we try to use local suppliers. So that means that they don't have to travel as far either to actually bring the stuff to our sites. So again, that reduces fuel, which reduces carbon emissions into the atmosphere or into the air. And even on our sites, we're trying to protect the environment. So you'll see here, we've developed, there was a green wall. So these were made out of recycled pallets, and then we put some lovely plants in it for the bees and all the birds and bugs around the place. And we actually even took one of the old boots and recycled it into a planter. This year's actually a green roof, but the flowers haven't grown yet on it, so they haven't. That was just over the winter time last year. And we put bug hotels into our construction sites as well. And again, that's to support the development of the biodiversity or the environment on the site. And we recycled some hard hats as well and used them not only as planters, but as bird boxes as well. So there's lots of little things that we can do on our construction sites to protect the environment. So in construction, we're trying to be as sustainable and as friendly to the environment as possible and reduce our emissions. And that's through changing the energy that we're using to solar power, wind and water, changing the type of fuel from diesel to biofuel or electric. We're going to reduce, reuse and recycle as much waste as possible that we generate. We're going to continue to reduce our water consumption, change the types of materials that we build our buildings with into more greener, sustainable materials. And finally, continue to protect and support the environment and Phoebe the Bee. So thank you very much for listening. And that's everything from me.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That's really brilliant. Great example there. So people might, next time you walk past a building site, everyone, you'll have a bit more of an idea of what happens there. And also some great ideas about little things you can do in your own gardens, even with an old shoe, or ways to like plant using a hat to put as a flower bed, and also the little birdhouse. Brilliant ideas. Just to say as well, if teachers, if there are any questions, if you want to stick them into the chat, we will have a go at answering them. So feel free to stick something in. If not, as I said, we'll be sending out some information following on from this webinar for the classroom as well, which will be able to help you. So if there aren't any questions, I say, do still feel free to pop them in there. I'm going to actually pass over to Ciara Mulgrew now from Business in the Community. So Ciara is the Ciara is from the education team in Business in the Community. I'm going to pass over to her here now. So Ciara, if you want to say a few words. You're just on mute there.
So hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope you all really enjoyed your time with us, and I'm sure you'll agree, a huge big thanks to our speakers from Translink, from Jenny, who was speaking on behalf of the team at Tales from Mother Earth, and Shauna, who was speaking on behalf of everyone at McLaughlin and Harvey. And it's great to see all the good work that everyone is doing. So for those of you who don't know some of us, Business in the Community run quite a few primary school programs as well. So some of you may have heard of our Time to Read, Time to Count and Time to Pro Code programs. And I know some of you are, from seeing the school names, are involved with us already. So it's great to see you joining us today for a slightly different initiative around the environment. For those of you who have sent in, we did ask if you could send in just to let us see what you're doing in your own school. So thank you very much for sending in and sharing your videos and photographs. Some of my personal favourites were seeing the pupils in Dunclug Primary School growing and eating their own food, their fruits and vegetables. Our visitors from Scotland at Moss Head Primary School sending through some of their projects around Team Solar and Eco Defenders, and also St. Teresa's and their school Eco Code, which is just brilliant. So it's great to see those coming through. We do have a couple of wee questions here if our speakers would be okay to answer them. So one from Whitehead Primary School from Caleb. Caleb has asked, can we burn fuels outside the atmosphere? Is that something anybody has any information on for Caleb?
I would have to say, Caleb, that burning fuel for Translink is all very much done on the road. And what we're trying to do is trying to reduce that down. I can't speak for astronauts and the fuel that they burn outside of it. But I'll tell you what, if you get the opportunity to do it, I'll go with you.
With another wee question here. How can we cook our food without fossil fuels? Is there an alternative at the minute? Are we allowed to plant trees and wildflowers in public places, or would you need council permission? So who wants to take those on?
Well, about the cooking, so obviously at the moment, most of our appliances in the kitchen are probably fueled through either gas or oil, which is a fossil fuel. If you were using electric and the electricity source was from a renewable source such as wind or solar, then I guess that would be, you would be cooking without fossil fuels. Now, obviously, we are seeing changes to come in where the big gas companies and the oil companies are going to start looking at alternatives to fossil fuel. So at the moment, we can't really yet, but I suppose we are on the road to being able to cook our food without fossil fuel. Are we allowed to plant trees and wildflowers in public places, or do we need permission from the council? I actually don't know the answer for that. I would imagine if it's in a park or something like that, that is a council owned, you probably would need permission. Obviously in your own garden or on your own windowsill or something like that, that would be fine. Oh, here's one for Translink. John, can Translink make oxygen fueled buses?
And that's a question I'll take back to our techie experts. Our priority at the moment, now we did look at a range of fuels, and our priority at the moment is what's called hydrogen fuel cell. So not to get too complex, but the hydrogen fuel cell is where we take hydrogen and we apply electric to the hydrogen. That propels the bus forward. And then the byproduct of oxygen, the byproduct coming out of the vehicle is just water. Our second preferred method of propelling the trains and buses is electricity. And Deirdre, as you said, the concept there would be to get that electricity in the first place from green sources. So we're working with electricity companies, with PowerNI and Energia, for the electricity to come from wind farms. But I will certainly take the oxygen fuel buses back to our technical experts and ask that question.
That's great, thank you. Someone here has asked another question: does burning peat affect climate change? Well, actually, unfortunately, peat is a fossil fuel, so it does affect climate change. But I suppose really, if you were going to burn, if you're burning like things like coal or peat in your fire at home, we would say that maybe look at like a kind of smokeless fuel or something that's lesser harm to the environment. Let's see, other question here. We said, can we make bigger fines and make it law not to litter? I would be behind that 100%. I think lots of people would. There's an organization called Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. They may have seen, they have ads around with a little funny sort of guy who gives out to people when they throw litter on the ground. So maybe we need him going around the streets a bit more. Do you think things will change after the COP26 conference? Hopefully, yes. I think that's what everyone's hoping for. I suppose what we want is that the governments and all the countries in the world will make changes so that they will make laws basically so that companies will have to then cut down on their emissions and cut down on the gases that are being emitted from the way that they operate and the vehicles that they use and things like that. What else has someone said here?
Deirdre, I'll just say I was very lucky to be at COP26 last Tuesday and Wednesday, and I would say there was a lot of energy about the exhibition, a lot of energy about the place, and people trying to make a difference and people trying to make things better. I can tell you in the streets of Glasgow, there was a bit of noise. I wasn't one of the ones making the noise, but there's a lot of people making noise. So I do hope that after COP26, there will be positive change.
I think also it'll give us a better direction of where we need to be going. So they're going to set out kind of key pointers for us to actually move towards. So it'll help us all move together, kind of as one world rather than individually, as it's all happening now at the minute as well.
And can I also say, back to the question about trees and wildflowers in public places, the councils across the country are planting trees and they are putting a lot of wildflowers into their gardens and green spaces now. And also they're leaving some areas of the grass to actually grow a little bit more than, the 5 centimetres, because once you let the grass grow a little bit more and you put the lawn mowers away, that allows biodiversity in your lawn to thrive. And that's what we need for all the pollinators and all the insects that need those wildflowers. So look out for grass that's going to be a little bit longer than maybe the football pitch sort of length. It's going to be growing a little bit more, but that is for an area of, for the biodiversity and the pollinators to really thrive. So that's going to be a good thing too. So that should be coming to your area very soon.
That's great. Thanks, Jenny. I see another question here where someone is asking about veganism, which means not eating meat. Someone has said, going vegan the biggest way to reduce our individual impact on climate change? Certainly eating less meat would be a move forward, yes. We're not saying to people completely stop eating meat or completely stop buying meat, but certainly eating a more plant-based diet is definitely going to have a positive impact on climate change. Okay, was there anything else coming through? I'm just checking if I've missed anything here.
I think the one about drivers trained, I presume that's about Translink's drivers.
So we're saying here, are drivers trained to deal with extra cyclists on the road and be patient with them? But I think
so. Yeah, that is an excellent question, because it's something. While I look after the environment, I've got a really important job because I'm in charge of safety as well. So that's an excellent question. Yes, the drivers are trained, and after we've all been dealing with COVID and the coronavirus and lockdowns, we can see that the roads are getting busier and busier, not only with cyclists, but with also more cars on the road again, which is a wee bit sad because we want them in want people to use buses and public transport. But we are doing extra training with our drivers because there are extra pedestrians using footpaths and roads, and there are extra cyclists using roads. And do you know as well, in the cities where we have bus lanes, do you know that cyclists can use the bus lanes as well? So actually we have cycle and bus lanes. So, and I think it's already law that cyclists have lights and wear a helmet, which is very sensible. And I would also encourage any of you that's driving your bikes on the footpath or on the road or even anywhere where it's dark, you should avoid wearing dark clothes and always wear bright colored clothing when you're on your bike.
Yes, great advice there.
I just Deirdre also suppose because McLaughlin Harvey's construction company, so we get a lot of big lorries deliveries to our sites. So we do. So all of our deliveries to contractors or the guys that work on our sites all have to go through a thing called clocks, which is basically construction logistics and community safety. It's a big fancy word for training to make sure that they know about all the vulnerable road users. So people like yourselves out walking or cyclists on the actual road as well. So they're aware of them. And so, yeah, most construction companies deliver that training out as well because we have so many vans and trucks and machinery on the road as well.
Great, thank you so much. Everybody, okay, I think we're a little pushed for time and I'm aware that some of you all want to be able to go and eat your lunch. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all the schools for joining us. Maybe everyone can just give us a big wave goodbye. And we will be in touch with your teachers.
Deirdre, can we just mention our wee surprise for our schools?
Oh, sorry, Kira, yes, yeah, I nearly forgot. Go on ahead.
So, as I said, huge thanks to everybody that joined us today. I know we had a lot of questions, and if we haven't answered you on this call, we'll try and get a wee answer out to your school afterwards. But as a way of us saying thank you to you for joining us and learning all about being more environmentally friendly and looking after our planet, we're going to give some goodies to all the schools who registered to attend today. So you will all be receiving a copy of Jenny's lovely book, Phoebe the Bee, and then also some other goodies from Translink and McLaughlin Harvey. So that'll include seeds and seed paper that you can maybe plant and make your own wildflower meadows and seed bombs and things like that. So they'll be on their way to you in the next couple of weeks. So again, huge thanks to everyone for joining us, and bye-bye from all of us at Business in the Community, Tales from Mother Earth, Translink and McLaughlin Harvey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.